Hello and welcome to the Nerdic podcast, episode number 292. 292. I am your host, Daniel. Again, it is just me. Last minute. Had to do it by myself, but that's okay. Connor should be back next week. But the show must go on. We got a really spicy thing to talk about. Nintendo, couple days ago, just announced a new direct for Friday, which it happens to be tomorrow as the recording of this. It's going to be an hour long, which I think is the longest a direct has been. Usually the longer ones tend to run about 40 minutes or so. This is going to be a hefty boy. So I'm expecting to have a lot of different things happen there. I'll just go ahead straight into my predictions. I think the two obvious things are getting a date for Metroid Prime 4, which I'm expecting to be this year, probably November, and then a date for the Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. I think that's going to have a date too, which is probably going to be December, if I were to guess. I think those are the for sure bets, even though there isn't really ever a for sure with Nintendo. You never know what they're going to do or say, especially in a 60-minute direct. They could just be talking about the Joy-Con mouse mode for 20 minutes. I do think we will see the Professor Layton and the Steam World, the New World of Steam game. They haven't talked about the game in a while. They haven't showed that game in a while. It was supposed to come out this year. I think it probably won't at this point, but I think at least put it back on people's radar. There's still a few months, so it could come out this year, especially not having GTA and things getting delayed into next year. There's still room in this year for it to come out, but I expect to see that. I do think Next Level Games will have a game here. We haven't seen anything from them in a while. I'm not sure if it'll be a Luigi's Mansion 4 or maybe a new sports game. I would hope for a Luigi's Mansion 4. Maybe next year, have them announce it for next year. That would be awesome. Luigi's Mansion 3 was really great. But they also make sports games, so there hasn't been a sports game on the Switch 2 yet, so that wouldn't surprise me either. I do think Donkey Kong Bonanza is going to get some DLC. I don't know if we'll see it here, especially it being so new of a game, only being a few months old, but I do think it's going to get DLC, and it wouldn't surprise me if they just go ahead and at least announce it here. Probably just be a new challenge mode, maybe a new world, something like that. A new level. I haven't played the game. I'm not sure how it's set up. I guess new floor or whatever. Obviously, we're going to have a bunch of whole montage of third-party ports of games you've already played. But there'll probably be announcements of things that are about to come out and have ports, something like that. But you're going to see a lot of games that you have already seen before, just running worse because it's on the Switch 2. I don't think the Duskbloods will be here. I think that's a game that got announced for next year, and they might as well just save that for maybe the first direct next year, which probably around February time. Just save it for then and then kind of put a date on it whenever they decide they want to put that game out, maybe in the summertime or early fall or something like that. But my two biggest predictions for this, I think we're going to see a new Fire Emblem game. I think it's going to be announced for the beginning of next year, probably February, if I were to guess, early February, late January. There hasn't been a Fire Emblem game in a few years now. It seems to be about right. Switch 2, have a nice new Fire Emblem game for those fans. And I think the biggest announcement that's going to be here will be a 3D Mario game. It's not coming out this year, though. It will be next year. probably next fall, if I were to guess. But I don't think they'll put a date on it. I think they'll just say 2026. But I think that is going to be the big reveal at the end of the Direct. Yeah, and I think that's most of my predictions. I think it's going to be a pretty solid Direct. It being 60 minutes is a lot. I just hope it doesn't drag. A 60-minute Direct from Nintendo could probably drag the whole way. But I am very excited for it. By the time you're hearing this, you already know what got revealed, but I'm thinking it's going to be pretty good. Next up, Borderlands 4 comes out tomorrow as well, which is pretty exciting. We got the reviews dropped this morning. It's sitting at a 84, which is pretty great. It's kind of what I was expecting. Kind of a return to form for Borderlands, especially after 3. 1 and 2 are classics. 3 played great, but the writing was not great. The story overall wasn't very great. I had some gameplay issues with it, but I did enjoy 3 for the most part. Let's see what the big reviewers gave it. GameSpot only gave it a 7. They were kind of on the lower end. Games Radar gave it an 8. VGC and IGN gave it an 8. Game Informer gave it an 8.5. Who else? Xbox Era gave it a 10. That's on the very high end. I don't think it's a 10, but yeah, the reviews seem to be pretty great. I'm excited to play it. Borderlands, haven't had a Borderlands game in 6 years now, so not including Tiny Tina's. That was kind of a side project. But yeah, I'm very excited for Borderlands. It's definitely a game I've been looking forward to for a long time. Next up, Hollow Knight Silksong. They announced they reached 5 million players in 3 days, which is pretty crazy for an indie game like this. On top of that, the day that the game released, it crashed all the storefronts for consoles. I don't think anybody expected that. I guess it didn't have any pre-orders at the time, so I think everyone was just hopping on every storefront immediately, just trying to buy Silksong, and no one could handle that. Yeah, I think it even broke the original game's concurrence, which makes sense. There's just more people playing games than in 2017, so the hype around this game is really real. And it's only a $20 game, which I think we need to kind of celebrate that too. A game with this much content, them not charging $30, $40, I think shows a lot. Even with an indie game like this, I think they still could have charged a lot more. I think Hollow Knight came out at 15 when it released, which is pretty low. 20 is a great deal. You're going to get a lot of content out of this game. Well, good for them. Good for Team Cherry. And I think that's going to do it for the news. I will move on to what I've been playing. I've been playing, went back to Shinobi. I know last week I talked about kind of falling off of Shinobi. I went back. I was like, I'm going to give it a chance. I was very excited for it. Lizard Cube knocked it out of the park with Street Rage 4. So I had to give it its due. Yeah, and I did beat the game. I think I beat it in about 9 hours, something like that. So it's much meatier than Street Rage 4, which I think was only 4 hours or so. Yeah, the combat's great. The visuals are stunning. This is one of the best looking games I've ever seen. The music's really good. I don't think it's as good as Ragebound. I think Ragebound's music's a little bit better. The platforming, I think, is where it kind of fails in this game. There's a lot of platforming, and I hate sections of platforming where you just get hit once and you just get teleported back and you got to do the entire thing again. I think that is not very fun. But where the game shines is the combat. I just wish the game leaned more into the fighting and the combat. I think the combat's very flashy and fun. So many cool moves. Joe could just one-shot most of the screen with the big ability. I forget what it's called. Some of the boss fights are really cool spectacles. Some of them are harder than others. There was a section in the middle of the game where I just found a lot of the bosses were pretty easy. Some of the bosses in the beginning I thought were a little hard because you just didn't have all the tools that you do towards the end of the game. The final boss was very challenging. You basically have to fight 2 bosses back to back, and you just don't have a lot of ways to heal, especially not having mob enemies that you can get healing from. There are like some passive abilities I think you can get that you can equip that allow you to heal easier for bosses. I think it's called like vampire. You heal where you you deal damage and you heal. I think that's probably better for when you're actually fighting a boss instead of a bunch of mobs. But overall, I think this game's incredible. I do like it a little bit more than Ragebound now, after the fact, because I think the combat feels a little bit better than Ragebound, but Ragebound feels better for platforming. So it is kind of a give and take. But this game just looks so incredible. I do recommend going and checking it out, even if you're not a huge fan of Metroidvanias or 2D action games. This game is worth checking out for how fun it is, especially just to fight enemies. And it breaks some of the mold of Metroidvanias because it is still level based, but all the levels have Metroidvania things where you can go and get an ability, then you unlock the rest of the map, or you can go back to them instead of just having one huge map that you're roaming around over and over again, unlocking new areas with new abilities. It is still level based, which I think helps to keep the game kind of moving. You always have a goal that you keep moving towards. Yeah, that's pretty much all I've been playing. I'm going to be playing Borderlands 4 this week. Want to check out Hollow Knight, the first one, because I do want to get to that and Silksong at some point. But Borderlands 4, that's the game I've been waiting for a very long time. So I'm hopping into that next. And then that'll probably lead me right into Ghost of Yote, which I think is October 4th. So I got like 3 weeks, which is probably going to be how long it takes me to beat Borderlands 4 anyways. So yeah, I think that's the order I'm playing stuff in. And with that, that'll be it for the Nerd of Gods podcast number 292. Please subscribe, comment. We're also on all audio services. We're on Apple. We're on Spotify. Go check us out there. Bye-bye, everybody.